Hi, you guys. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining me. Please join me as I interview a sweet guest today.
Thank you, Mrs. Roberta, for inviting me over to do this interview.
My pleasure.
It is such a blessing to be here. You guys, this is Mrs. Roberta. She is the pastor's wife. She's such sweet lady that has inspired me also to do homemaking and to love homemaking. So I have a few questions for you.
Hopefully I'll have some bit of wisdom or insight somebody could use.
Why don't we start off with something that's just a little simple? Actually, how many years? This is one that I just want to know if you think about it. About how many years would you say you've been homemaking?
Yeah. Well, I had to work full time.
Mm-hmm. And do take care of.
And so, but I feel like anytime you're in your home and you're taking care of your
homemaker.
home, you're a homemaker.
That's true.
That's my first ministry and priority is toward my family.
Yes, that is so true. That is so true. That is exactly what I was letting the ladies know, that, also those who work are able to keep their homes, and they are keepers of their homes. Anytime you have a home, whether you're single, married, you're still a keeper of your home, and it's good practice, and it is our ministry. It is a ministry for us. So who was your first example of homemaking?
Well, I'd have to say it was my mom.
Yes.
And she was just the sweetest thing, and she was so patient and kind, and was very faithful to train my sister and I up, not only in the Lord, but in doing acts of service and working around the home. And she actually made it fun.
Oh, that's awesome. We can use some of that, right, ladies? We can use some of that advice. How do we make it fun? Do you have a few examples?
Yes.
Actually?
Well, when we'd be cleaning, we always, because she worked during the week, we had little chores, my sister and I, around the house when we get home from school or whatever. But we did our major cleaning on Saturday morning typically. And Mom would pitch in. And we had the big stereo for the album, with the big speakers. And we put on an album. We had a lot of show tune albums, like The Sound of Music.
Oh, perfect.
And Fiddler on the Roof, and just stuff my sister and I loved to sing to as we were doing our work.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
I never thought about that.
Yeah.
Putting on some wonderful music.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I followed I did that too with my boys. Like we'd have to go out and scoop poop. Sorry, but
Well, it's true.
If you have a dog, you got to take care of them. And it wasn't the funnest job in the world. Nobody really likes to do it, probably. But I'd just start singing.
Yeah.
And I'd work with them sometimes, just to make it like it doesn't have to be a drudgery. Our chores don't have to be a drudgery.
Yes, I agree.
We can try to have fun. I mean, they're necessities. We have to keep, things clean and orderly. And so, I always appreciate that about my mom, that she made things fun. Even though, there are times I didn't want to dust and I didn't want to vacuum or whatever. Yeah.
You have to get motivation.
Right. You just have to do it.
You just have to.
I often put music on when I'm cleaning.
And it's helpful. I do find that when I am actually listening to music in the background, it is so much easier for me to actually do the work. I don't quite find it such a chore. And it's a gift.
Right.
Like we get to do this.
Right.
This is not something we have to do, but we actually get to do it. So
that's a good way to look at it.
Why not make it fun, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Now I listen to podcasts more than music, but when with children, it's nice to have.
It's nice to have the music playing. The kids love the 80s. So I think I'm going to be doing that this Saturday. Maybe it'll be some motivation.
Yeah. Kind of dance around the house while you're dusting or whatever.
I have to do something because they do it and it seems more of a chore to them. And I don't want it to be that way. I would prefer for them to enjoy it. And it makes it fun.
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah.
I used to have the dance parties for 80, so I'll put on the music and they can dance and clean up.
Great idea.
So you've never done schedules or anything really
for cleaning?
Like
well, we would because when I was working, we would have to have
something
a day
posted,
or a part, not a whole day, but a part of a day. But I only worked in the salon for about 5-6 years, and then I was able to have a salon in my home.
And that was helpful?
Yes, because I could put laundry in between clients, or I could do, take care of the kitchen things, even prep a meal.
Right.
So that was a blessing too. Where I found it to be a ministry.
Yes.
Where I was meeting with a lot of women while you're doing their hair, and they open up, and I knew I had to give them godly advice from God's word. Right. And so it turned into more of a ministry.
Yeah, because it is, I mean, anytime you're around anyone and they share, that's an opening for you to actually minister to them about God and his word. So really, when we go to any job, we have that opportunity to share our faith at that point. And especially if someone's opening up to you, I mean, they really want to know what our joy, why are we so joyful?
Right.
And, the scripture does point us to, hey, we're joyful because of the Lord.
Right.
And we just advise them of that. So it's helpful. So anyone who is actually working from home as well, I know it could be a distraction to us, but it's actually helpful. It's a blessing because we're able to work from home in addition to putting the clothes or the laundry, starting dinner.
Yeah.
We have those breaks, and at work you're stuck. You're in that in
Yeah.
that environment. You cannot just go off and do something,
Yeah,
because we have a few ladies that are also working from home, and that's actually a blessing. Not it's not like some may say, oh no, it's a curse because it's a distraction, but it's actually a good thing that you're able to do work at home while you're working, because we all have those breaks and we can get something done. So that's helpful. Was it difficult in the beginning raising the boys and also being a pastor's wife?
It definitely had its challenges, and I'll tell you why. Partly because I was young when my husband was called to pastor, to church plant, and we had a 2-year-old son and one on the way.
Oh wow!
And I looked young. I was young. I still had some immaturity.
Mm-hmm.
So those were challenges. The boys weren't necessarily challenged; they were a
Mm-hmm.
joy.
They were a joy.
And I mean, of course, you have challenges with your
Yes,
kids
of
at
course.
times, but for the most part, they were the delight of my day a lot of times.
Mm-hmm.
But the part of the reason it was a challenge, and I don't, it's not because of the church. It
Right.
was more my past upbringing in a church,
Mm-hmm.
several churches, and sadly, they would roast the pastor at lunch.
Oh goodness!
Not
Make the
everybody, but
jokes and
or I can't believe the pastor's wife did this and that,
so they were so
and
observant and making
yeah, and then they talk about the pastor's kids if they messed
So
up,
you
and
had the fears
I
of
had I was intimidated and fearful of
yeah.
that. I did not want my children to go through that.
Yes.
I
You
didn't
didn't want
want
to
it.
go through it,
Yeah.
right? And of course you didn't want it for Pastor John.
No.
Right.
So, but he was called to preach
Mm-hmm.
and to start this church, and I knew I had to be a support and encouragement.
Mm-hmm.
And so, God gave me the grace and the gifts to do that.
Thankfully. Yeah.
It was all of God, because I honestly wasn't excited about being a pastor's wife.
Yeah, didn't come
And
naturally.
no, it was just, it was a fearful thing for me. But thankfully, the church, we started with a small group, and for the moment we knew each other.
Mm-hmm.
They had agreed to meet with us and start this church. So there was a commitment there. And John was very wise, and I was very thankful that he let everyone know
Mm-hmm.
that I'm his wife first, and my first ministry is to my family.
Yes.
And then to the church.
Into the church.
Well, obviously God,
God,
family, and church.
That's right.
But so they didn't put those expectations on me.
That's great.
I was just very thankful for that. It just kind of set.
So he broke the ice really
mm-hmm.
and made it really relaxed for you.
More, yes.
So that was a blessing in itself, that the Lord ministered through him.
Mm-hmm.
And released all those fears
right.
after that for you.
Right.
So that was very helpful.
Yeah, I was very thankful.
So I would say for sure that for me, when I first got married, I had no inclination at all to be a homemaker. That was the furthest thing from my mind. But what's so funny is growing up, the movies and the shows that I gravitated towards were the stay-at-home moms.
Oh.
Leave It to Beaver. Oh goodness, go through the Brady Bunch.
Yeah.
There's just a host. Even though she had a maid, she was still home, and she was still there.
Right.
When the kids came, and let's not talk about what made me so comfortable was Lucille Ball and all the mistakes she made. And it's so funny, right?
And you kind of could relate to a lot
I
of it.
could totally. It makes you so at ease when you have someone of that example, and you're like, oh, I could do this. So it's really helpful, and it's so funny because that is really, I grew up wanting to watch those shows. I love those shows, and I really admired those moms because they were there. And I just looked up to that. My grandmom was at home. She was a nurse in the hospital, and she worked a lot. But when I was in like high school and middle school, she was home and she was cooking in the kitchen. She had the windows open. You get off the bus, everyone was like, I'm coming over to your house. I smell your grandmother's cooking, And so that's a blessing, because when you have a bad day, you're there for that cookie and the glass of milk, and to hear about, because mothers know their children, and you have that opportunity to find out what is going on, and you can minister to them in that. Right. So that's a blessing.
It is.
Love that. So how do you plan? Like, what is your plan? Do you have a plan that you go by to entertain your guests? Because you're a pastor's wife, so there's definitely a lot of
Mhm.
entertaining. How do you plan your home and your how do you plan to the
Well,
guest meals, everything?
right. John and I, when we first got married, we discovered that we both love to show hospitality
Mhm.
and entertain. And my mom taught me how to cook,
Mhm.
and she helped me. In fact, when I was in high school, I was basically doing all the evening meals.
Oh, that's great.
So when my mom came home, because I loved doing it, I asked her if I
That's a
could.
perfect tip, ladies.
Yeah.
Start the girls off early.
Yeah, yeah, maybe not every night, but I just loved it. And so she let me be creative in the kitchen and things like
Oh,
that.
that's great.
So, and we had people over a lot,
Mhm.
even, when I
Even
was,
then, when you were
I
young.
watched my mom and helped her. And, it just became kind of a natural thing. So, in a sense, it is, I think I look at the hospitality we do as a gift from God.
That is a gift.
And we get blessed more than
Yes.
we give blessing, I believe.
Yes.
So, so in a way, everybody's not like that.
No.
And and it's part of our ministry.
Mhm.
It's God brought us together, and that has been one of the things I think that has strengthened the ministry.
Yeah,
And
it really
plus,
does.
it's a great way to have people over, have that fellowship.
Yes.
And I would say keep it simple.
Keep it simple.
Right.
So let's see what that means.
Okay. Well, let me tell you, when we first, we didn't have a lot of money,
Uh-huh.
and John was in seminary, and I worked during the week,
Mhm.
and on Saturdays were my big day.
Yes.
John would want to have company over. So I'd say, okay, if you kind of help me straighten up the house before I get home, if it's out of sorts. And what we would do, we'd have pizza nights where I would make the dough and the sauce.
Yeah.
Because my grandmother, John's grandmother, was Italian.
Uh-huh.
So she taught
She
me.
taught you.
And then we just call our friends and say, do you want to come? And would you bring this topping or whatever your favorite topping
That's
is?
awesome.
So then I wasn't buying all the ingredients.
That's great.
And then we'd make pizza together.
And it's economical, and you're
Uh-huh.
doing an activity together.
Yeah.
I love that idea.
It was really fun. Or, I mean, sometimes we didn't, I thought, well, let's shake it up a little bit and let's have something else. And you just kind of create
Mhm.
potlucks.
Mhm.
And, you might
Everyone
provide
does.
this part and ask people to provide, so it doesn't have to be a huge expense.
Yes.
And people like to share their food with
They
each,
like to be a part of it.
Mhm.
They want to get involved too.
Most people,
Most
yeah.
people do, really.
So, the main thing is keep it simple. You don't have to have elaborate meals, for sure.
Mhm.
If you don't have nice plates and stuff,
Use what you
use
have.
paper plates, or use, we had a picnic table. That was it was in
It
our
was in the
dining
dining
room,
room.
and it wasn't very comfortable, but we had a lot of fun around that picnic
I
table. So
bet.
sometimes, just because we think we don't have the stuff to entertain, we
Mhm.
don't.
Mhm.
But again, every family is different.
Every
that
family
way.
is different.
And
But in this economy, it's still wise. I think it's smart and it's wise, and it's not such a hard burden on just the actual host.
Right.
When you involve the guests,
Right.
and most are willing. They usually reach out and ask, what can we bring?
Right.
And that's an opportunity to offer help.
Mm-hmm.
So to tell them what you need. Don't be too prideful. Don't be
Yeah.
prideful.
Yeah.
We're taught that in the Bible. Let's not be prideful. Say, yes, I can use some help. Can you bring this? Can you bring that? And you're right. If you feel like you don't have enough table, chairs, or enough to entertain, people just want to gather together.
Right. And your house doesn't have to look perfect. I mean, I think, and so I read a book when we first started in the ministry about pastors' wives, and said, it's okay if you've got laundry sitting on the couch and you haven't folded it. You just put it there, and somebody comes to your door from your church, and you're like, oh no, they're going to see how it's clean, but it hasn't been folded and put away yet. And the book pretty much said that it'll make people feel like you're real.
Yes.
They have the same issues, you know.
Oh,
Or
wow. Like, what advice can you give to those considering being homemakers? Like, do you have any advice for those who want to be a full-time homemaker?
I think it's a noble desire
Yeah.
to want to do that. I think not everyone can.
No, I
A
know
full
that
time,
unfortunately.
I couldn't,
Right.
and that that was a struggle for me at times. But I think you know, if you desire it, but it's a decision made
It's
with.
made with the spouse,
Mhm,
and it's something you have to think about and have to bring wisdom before
mhm,
it and pray
mhm.
about it.
Right,
Really,
right,
right? Because
right.
I
It's not
will
about
imagine.
just quitting work just to be
No,
home.
no.
It's about you have a bigger job at home
Yes,
that it's full time work.
it is full-time work.
And
It is not easy, like, and it may seem like to the world, oh, you're just a stay-at-home mom. You're just watching like Lucy
yeah.
and eating and just sitting in front of the TV every
Right.
once in a while. But that is not what it's about, is it?
No, no, it
No, it's
isn't.
actually
There's work to be done, and in training your children too. That is a lot of work, and it's a good work.
yeah.
And it's not that you can't do it though. If you have to work, you can still
You can
do
still
those things.
do those
But
things. It's just not full time.
right.
But it's natural. Like, I find it natural to have that strong desire and
Mm-hmm,
calling
mm-hmm,
to be a homemaker. Especially convictions may come
mm-hmm,
when you come across Titus 2,
mm-hmm,
right? And but like, there's a time and place. The Lord may not quite, it may not be that time for
yeah.
you as of
Mm-hmm,
yet,
right.
but it's a natural desire to want to be a full-time
Yeah.
homemaker. And it's okay if you're not. And when you are able, if it ever comes to that point where you are able, then that is a great blessing
Mm-hmm,
also, to be able to be full-time at
mm-hmm,
home. It's not an excuse to stay at home and just not do
mm-hmm.
any work.
Right.
Like, I was reading this book, and um, she mentioned in the book that you get the little ones to pick up after, every time they have a
Mm-hmm,
playtime,
mm-hmm.
have maybe one pile or two piles available for them to play. But after they're done playing,
Mm-hmm.
have them pick it up at that time.
Right.
And when they go down for a nap, or if they have quiet time, that's your chance to
Mm-hmm.
also pick up
Right.
what they didn't do, so that you can be more productive before your husband gets
Mm-hmm.
home. So you're not a wreck and
Right.
rushing
Right.
and a mess to get dinner on. So,
You're right. Yeah.
yeah, I love that.
Because you want to make your home a haven either way,
Mm-hmm.
especially if you're home.
Yes.
You have that opportunity to make it very easy for your husband to come
Yes.
home and just not in seeing the house in a wreck and just
Yes. It's stressful to see stuff out of place and clutter everywhere.
Yeah.
It's very stressful, and it's so
Mhm.
calming. Mr. Roberta's home is so calming.
Huh?
We have, we do have women's Bible study on Thursdays, and she's so kind. She makes this wonderful popcorn for
Yeah.
everyone. She's so hospitable. And I love that. And it's always inviting. Sometimes you have a candle on, or you have the mood set. It's just really an artwork to be able to do that. It's a gift from God when you have that just natural inclination to make it a safe and just wonderful, peaceful place for people to come over. So
Thank you.
I definitely pay attention.
Thank you. Well, I don't have kids at home right now.
Yeah, I know. But it really is
Thank
still a gift. So then, what advice do you have for those who are still raising little ones at home and working and trying to keep their home? Like, you mentioned this before,
Mm-hmm.
you were working in the beginning, and you also had a home to care for the children, and you did give some actual gifts to us about, well, get the kids involved.
Mm-hmm.
And what any extra advice would you give the ladies out there that are struggling? Because I hear some of them who may have 3, 4 little ones at home, and they also have to keep the home and have dinner, and it could be quite hectic for them.
It can be. I think we have to cut ourselves a little bit of slack.
Yes.
If you work outside the home, you end up having to do a lot of your work on Saturday.
Yes.
Because when the kids get older, you're running around with
That's true.
baseball games or whatever,
Activities.
practices. Yeah. And so you just have to kind of pick up as you go.
As you go.
That's what I would try to do.
Give yourself some grace, right?
Exactly.
So you have to give yourself some grace. We're only human. And like I mentioned before, we can, like you mentioned also, do one thing at a time.
Right.
Maybe one thing a day, or just put everything on
Mhm.
Saturday, and that way everyone can get involved.
Yeah.
The little ones love, that song, clean up, everyone,
Right.
everywhere. And they just go to cleaning up, so it's worth the actual effort to give it a try, see what works best, because every household is different, every family is different, and let's just do our best to just give ourselves some rest days too, okay? Because if you're working and you're taking care of your home and your husband, your kids, you do need a rest also. So we must remember that there are plenty of chances to lean on the Lord for his help and strength, and for you to be disciplined to get the work done. Because there's plenty of nights where we may just be on our last energy and spent. It's all spent, and you have nothing left. And we can pray and ask for strength. And it's funny how you just get that extra boost to just complete that last task. So plenty of opportunities. Mrs. Roberta, this is such a blessing. Thank you so much.
Thank you
for inviting me and answering these questions, because these ladies will take so many gifts from this.
I hope so. I mean, the little bit of my experience hopefully will translate to others.
It will. It really will. Thank you so much.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you for asking me. I have a long way to go, too. I love you.
So that is definitely a wrap. Thank you, Mrs. Roberta, for inviting me over and doing this interview. See? Now let's see if you can see me.
No one ever comes to my door. These are all.